deep inside a quiet forest on the edge of a forgotten planet. The tall trees whispered with the wind. It was a wild place, full of strange sounds. Glowing insects and giant plants that moved slowly when touched. No machines, no cities, no sky. Traffic, just the silence of nature and old stories. Eir walked alone, carrying a small pouch of herbs. She was from a peaceful tribe that lived in the valley beyond the hills. Her people believed in balance and living with the world instead of changing it. They avoided the machines of the stars, kept to old ways, and followed the teachings of their ancestors. They told stories of fire from the sky, of other beings who once visited their world, but left chaos behind. The elders called them outsiders. None had been seen in generations. Eira's task was simple: gather healing roots and return before nightfall. She had done it many times before, but this time she wandered a bit farther. A glowing vine caught her eye, and she followed it around a thick tree trunk. Then across a small stream. She didn't notice the metal hidden in the moss. A loud snap. She screamed and fell. Pain shot up her leg like fire. A heavy trap had closed round her ankle. It was old, rusted, but strong. Sharp metal teeth dug into her skin. She gasped, tried to pull free, but the pain was too much. She reached for a stick to open the trap, but it didn't move. Tears welled up in her eyes. No, 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 she whispered. Hours passed. The sun sank low. The forest changed color. Strange cries echoed in the distance. She was losing strength. The pouch of herbs lay just out of reach. Eira looked up. The sky above the trees had turned deep blue, dotted with early stars. She remembered something her mother once told her when she was small. When all hope is gone, find the brightest star. Speak your wish, and if the sky listens, something will answer. It sounded like a child's tale. But now, lying helpless and hurt, she had nothing else. She took a slow, shaky breath, placed her hand over her heart, and whispered, "Please, I don't want to die here. Help me." At that moment, a star moved. It streaked across the sky like a silver flame and vanished. Eira stared at it, wide-eyed. Her lips trembled. She didn't know if it was real or just her mind slipping away. But she felt something. Not warmth, not a voice, just hope. She closed her eyes. Then she heard it. A sound, steady, heavy. Footsteps. Not animal steps, not the soft shuffle of leaves. No, these were deep, slow, and coming closer. She opened her eyes and tried to sit up. The pain made her cry out softly. Through the thick trees, a shadow moved, tall, 2 legs, carrying something on his back. It was not one of her people. He stepped into the light of the moon that slipped through the trees. He was human. Eira had never seen one before. She had heard the stories, creatures from beyond the stars. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were curious and clever. Some elders feared them. Others believed they no longer existed. But here he was. The man paused when he saw her. His eyes widened. He looked tired, covered in dirt and scratches. His clothes were torn. His boots were worn. He had a device on his wrist and a small pack on his back. He looked around, then slowly stepped closer. Eira tensed. She didn't have the strength to run. She didn't even have the strength to shout. He raised his hands, palms open, and spoke softly. Though she didn't understand his words, his voice was calm. He pointed to her leg, then moved closer. Kneeling beside her. Eira flinched but didn't pull away. He examined the trap. Then his face grew hard. He muttered something under his breath and pulled out a tool from his pack. With slow, careful movements, he pressed it against the trap. A soft click, then a hiss. The trap opened. Eira gasped and pulled her leg back quickly. It bled, but not badly. She looked at him. He reached into his pack again and took out a small bottle and a clean cloth. He poured the liquid on her wound. It stung, but she didn't cry out. He wrapped her leg carefully, not too tight. He helped her sit up, then offered her water. She drank it without thinking. She looked at his face. He looked back. They didn't speak the same language, but something passed between them, understanding. He gestured to her leg, then pointed behind him. He wanted to help her walk. She nodded. He wrapped one arm around her shoulder, and slowly they stood. She leaned on him, limping. Step by step, they moved through the forest. The night air was cool. Insects buzzed. Small animals scurried in the distance. After some time, they reached a rocky area with a low cave. He guided her inside. It was dry and warm. A small fire pit sat in the middle. Nearby, strange supplies were laid out: food packets, tools, even drawings on the wall made in charcoal. This was his home. He helped her sit near the fire and gave her another drink of water. She watched as he started the fire. The flames grew, casting soft light around the cave. Air leaned back, breathing slowly. The pain in her leg was still there, but it was less now. She was safe, not alone. The man sat across from her, watching the flames. She looked up again, through the cave opening. The stars still shined above, and for the first time in hours, Air smiled. The cave was quiet except for the sound of the fire, soft crackling, like whispers in the dark. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. Inside, Air sat near the warmth, her back resting against the stone wall. Her leg was bandaged and sore, but she no longer felt afraid. The man who had saved her moved carefully around the space. He didn't speak, only gave her small glances as he worked. His name was still unknown to her. She didn't know his story, where he came from, or why he was here, but she knew he meant no harm. His eyes were tired, but not unkind. He pulled something from his pack. It was a flat square object with lights. He pressed it, and it showed glowing symbols she couldn't read. He looked at it for a moment, sighed, then placed it beside him. He was hoping for something, maybe a message, maybe rescue. Eira watched him, her fingers gently touching the edge of her bandage. Her people always said humans were made of metal and fire, but this one was quiet, gentle, and very much alive. He looked at her again and reached into a small metal box. He pulled out the food bars, offered one to her. She took it carefully and smelled it. It had no scent she knew. She took a small bite. It was dry but sweet. She nodded once in thanks. He smiled a little, the first real smile she saw on his face. After eating, he brought over a small stick and drew in the dirt floor. He made a picture of something falling from the sky, a ship, maybe. Then he drew fire, broken trees, and a man walking alone. He pointed to himself. Air leaned forward. She picked up another stick and added to the drawing. She drew mountains, her tribe's home, and a girl walking in the forest. Then she drew a trap, herself crying, and a star above. She pointed to herself. He looked at her drawing, then at her. He seemed surprised. He reached out and gently pointed at the star she had drawn. "You wished?" he asked, voice soft. She didn't understand his words, but the tone felt warm. He leaned back and looked at the stars outside the cave. Then he spoke again, as if thinking out loud. "Maybe I'm the one who heard it." They sat quietly for a while. The fire burned low. Ira's eyelids grew heavy. She shifted a little, curling up near the warmth. The man picked up a blanket from the corner and placed it over her shoulders. She blinked up at him, and he nodded once before sitting across the cave. In the morning, light from the forest crept into the cave. Birds chirped. Aira opened her eyes slowly. The man was already awake, boiling water in a small pot. He gave her a warm drink with herbs, something he found nearby. They stepped outside later that day. She limped, but with his help, they managed to walk a little. He showed her where he got water from a nearby stream. He had built traps not to catch people, but small animals. Some traps were broken. Some had never worked. He showed her his ship's wreckage, hidden under thick trees and vines. Most of it was burned. The radio was still working, but weak. He had tried to send a signal many times, but nothing ever came back. Aira listened carefully. Even if she didn't understand his words, she watched his hands, his face. She saw how tired he was, how alone. They returned to the cave before the sun sank. That evening, she tried to help. She gathered dry leaves, passed him tools, and even managed to make the fire spark on her own. The man laughed softly and clapped once. She smiled, proud as night came again. She looked up at the stars. She thought of her family. They must be worried, but her legs still hurt, and the path back was long. And something inside her told her she wasn't meant to leave just yet. The man brought out a small square again. This time, he placed it between them. He pressed a button, and a voice played old, cracked, but still clear. Exploration team, if anyone hears this, distress beacon active. Coordinates, then silence. Aira tilted her head. She didn't know the words, but she knew what it meant. He was calling out, again and again, hoping someone would come. She touched the screen gently and looked at him. He gave a small nod. He hadn't given up. Even after all this time, he picked up his stick again and drew more pictures. One of a large ship in the sky, people running out. Then he drew a circle around both of them, a question mark. Aira thought for a moment. Then she nodded if rescue came. She would go with him. They sat there for a while longer, drawing small things in the dirt, trees, stars, a bird with strange wings. She drew a flower from her valley. He drew a tall building from Earth. Their worlds were different, but their smiles were the same. That night, outside the cave, something howled in the distance, a deep, long cry that echoed through the forest. The man grabbed a small light and his tool. He stood at the entrance. Eyes sharp. Eira stood behind him, watching. Stay close, he said softly. And though she didn't know the words, she understood the meaning. They waited, but nothing came. In the morning, they found tracks not far from the cave, large ones, not friendly. They looked at each other. The wild was changing. Something was getting closer. The forest felt different now. The trees still stood tall. The wind still moved through their leaves, but there was a silence beneath it all. Even the birds stayed quiet. The air felt heavier, like something was watching. Eira and the man Nolan, as she had learned his name to be, stood near the edge of the cave. She watched him kneel beside the strange tracks. They were wide, deep, and shaped like claws, too large for any animal she knew. The print sunk into the soft dirt, pointing toward the cave. Nolan touched the ground lightly, then looked toward the trees. It was close, he said quietly, more to himself than to her. Aira didn't know the creature, but she knew enough from the forest silence. The land itself was warning them. They spent the morning preparing. Nolan repaired a few of the traps he had made earlier. Aira helped the best she could. Though her legs still ached, she had learned to move with a stick he had carved for her. It helped her walk short distances. Nolan handed her a long branch, sharpened at the end. He showed her how to hold it, not as a weapon but just in case. Aira took it, gripping it tightly. They returned to the cave before noon. Inside, Nolan checked the small machine again, the one he used to send signals. Still no answer. He sighed and set it down. Eira sat near the fire pit, tracing patterns in the dirt with her stick. She looked at Nolan. She wanted to ask so many questions about his world, about how he came here. But she couldn't speak his language, and he couldn't speak hers. Still, somehow, they understood each other. He noticed her watching and smiled a little. He picked up a flat rock and began carving something with a sharp tool. Slowly, an image appeared to people standing side by side, stars above them, a fire below. Aira smiled and nodded. Later, they boiled some water and shared dried food. It wasn't much, but it was warm. Outside, the wind picked up. The trees shook gently. Something moved far away, breaking a branch. Nolan stood and stepped to the entrance, holding a light. Nothing. Eira walked beside him. Leaning on her stick, she pointed to the stars. Wish, she said. Nolan looked up. The stars blinked silently in the black sky. Yeah, he whispered. Maybe we still have a little luck left. They stayed near the fire that night, both sleeping lightly. Sounds came and went, soft rustles, a far-off growl, but nothing came close. In the morning, they checked the traps. One had caught something, a small creature, enough for food. They cleaned and cooked it over the fire. It reminded Aira of her village days, sitting with her people as they shared stories and warm meals. When she looked at Nolan, she no longer saw a stranger. He was part of this forest now, and maybe, for now, part of her life to dot as they ate. Nolan pulled out a cloth. He unwrapped it slowly and showed her something. It was a photo, faded and worn from time. It showed two people, one with dark hair, one with a wide smile. Both looked happy. He tapped his finger on one, then on himself. Air nodded. Family. He looked away for a second. His face softened. Maybe they were waiting for him. Maybe they thought he was gone. Ira reached out and touched his shoulder gently. He looked at her and gave a small nod. He didn't speak, but his eyes said thank you. Then a loud sound broke the quiet. Metal moving fast. Both of them jumped to their feet. Stay here, Nolan said quickly, holding up a hand. He grabbed his tool and stepped outside. Air followed carefully, staying close to the wall. Through the trees, something moved. Tall, silver, with blinking red lights. A machine. Nolan swore under his breath. A patrol drone. One of ours. But damaged. The machine spun, scanning the area with a beam of red light. It had seen something. Its movements were jerky, broken. Then it turned sharply. And started moving toward the cave. Nolan grabbed Ira's arm and pulled her back. Inside. Now, they rushed into the cave. Nolan grabbed his gear, shoved the fire out with dirt, and moved behind a large stone. Air hid beside him, her heart beating fast. The sound of metal grew louder. Closer. The drone stopped outside. It let out a loud buzz and scanned the area. Nolan looked at Aira. He placed a finger over his lips. Stay quiet. The machine stepped forward. Its scanner swept across the cave. Then it moved slowly into the cave. Ira held her breath. Her grip on the stick tightened. The drone took another step, then another. Nolan picked up a rock and waited. His eyes locked on the machine. It paused. Turned its head toward the sound of the broken fire pit, and stepped that way. Nolan threw the rock as hard as he could toward the far side of the cave. The rock hit the wall with a loud crack. The drone turned instantly and followed the noise. Nolan grabbed Ira's hand and ran. They slipped out through the side, round a narrow crack in the rock that led to the outside. They ran, fast and low, not stopping until they reached a ridge. They hid behind a tree, panting. Below, the drone left the cave, spinning in confusion. Ira looked at Nolan. He looked at her. We can't stay there anymore, he said, breathing hard. It knows. She didn't understand the words, but she knew the meaning. The cave was no longer safe. They would have to move, together. They turned and walked deeper into the forest, not knowing what waited but knowing they had each other. Air and Nolan moved carefully through the forest, away from the cave that was no longer safe. The trees grew thicker here, and the sunlight barely touched the ground. The air was cool, and the sounds of the wild surrounded them, birds calling, leaves rustling, distant howls. Ira's single quotes as leg hurt with every step, but Nolan was patient. He had made a simple brace from wood and cloth, tying it firmly around her ankle. It helped her walk, though slowly, slow, he said softly, pointing to her leg and then his lips. Air nodded, grateful for his care. They needed a new shelter, a place to hide and rest. Nolan scanned the area carefully. He moved silently, like a hunter. Air followed his lead, trusting his knowledge. After some time, they found a small clearing surrounded by thick bushes and fallen logs. It was hidden from the sky and shielded by tall trees, perfect for a temporary camp. Nolan started making a small fire, careful not to let the smoke rise too much. Air gathered dry leaves and twigs. She wanted to help, while the fire burned low. Nolan pulled out his tools and began fixing some of his gear. He worked quietly, but his face showed worry. Air watched him, feeling the weight of their situation. She took a deep breath and pointed to the stars above, then made a circle with her fingers. Hope, she said softly. Nolan smiled faintly and nodded. Night fell quickly. The forest was alive with sounds, insects buzzing, distant growls, and the wind whispering secrets. Aira and Nolan sat close to the fire, sharing their small meal. As they ate, Nolan pulled out his small flat device again. He tried to send a signal. The machine beeped and buzzed, but no answer came. Eira reached out and touched his hand. It was warm and steady. He looked at her and gave a small, encouraging smile. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the calm crack of a branch snapping nearby. Nolan stood quickly, holding a small weapon. Eira gripped her wooden staff tightly. From the shadows, a large figure emerged. It was a wild beast, tall and strong, covered in thick fur, with glowing eyes and sharp teeth. It growled deeply. Moving closer. Eira single quotes as heart raced. She stood beside Nolan, ready to defend. The beast charged. Nolan threw a small object that exploded in a flash of light and smoke. The beast roared and stopped. Confused. Eira took the chance and jabbed with her staff, hitting the beast's side. It growled louder but didn't attack again. It turned and ran back into the forest. They both breathed heavily. Danger, Nolan said simply. Eira nodded. The wild was full of threats, but together they were stronger. For the next days, Eira and Nolan moved cautiously. They shared stories through drawings and gestures. Eira showed Nolan the healing plants she knew, and Nolan shared how he fixed machines and made tools. Their bond grew deeper. Each day, they learned more about each other's worlds. Then, one morning, as the sun rose orange and red, Nolan spotted something in the sky. A large ship. It was not like his small, broken craft. This was bigger, newer, and fast. He pointed to the sky and made a circle with his fingers. Rescue, he said. Eira single quotes as eyes widened with hope. They prepared quickly. Nolan packed his tools, and Eira gathered herbs and food for the journey. As they left their camp, the forest seemed quieter, as if it knew something was changing. But danger was not over. While moving toward the ship's landing zone, they heard a mechanical hum. From behind the trees, another drone appeared, larger and faster than before. It was hunting. Nolan and Eira ducked behind a tree. The drone scanned with red lights, searching. They held their breath. The drone moved closer. Nolan grabbed a small device from his packet jammer. He activated it. A high-pitched sound filled the air. The drone paused, confused, then suddenly stopped moving. It powered down. Silent. Eira smiled. Team, Nolan said. Looking at her. They were a team now. They had survived together. Finally, the big ship landed not far from them. Armed humans came out, running toward Nolan and Eira. Nolan raised his hand, signaling peace. Eira stepped forward slowly, no longer afraid. The rescue was here. As they walked toward the ship, Eira looked back once at the forest. It had tested her and Nolan. It had changed her. But now, the stars were closer than ever, and hope was alive. The large ship's engines hummed softly as Eira and Nolan stepped aboard. Bright lights shone inside, and people moved quickly, checking machines and talking in voices Eira could not understand. The air smelled clean and warm, a sharp difference from the forest dampness. Eira looked around nervously, holding tightly to Nolan's hand. She was far from home now. The valley, the forests, her people all seemed like a distant dream. But she trusted Nolan. He had saved her life and shown her kindness when she was alone. The ship's captain approached. He was tall, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Nolan spoke to him first, explaining the situation quickly. The captain turned to Eira and smiled kindly. Using a small translator device, he asked, "Are you hurt?" Eira shook her head, then pointed to her leg bandage. The captain nodded. "We will help you heal." She felt relief wash over her. In the days that followed, Eira learned about this new world, the human world beyond her forest. She met doctors who cleaned her wounds and gave her medicine. They showed her pictures of stars, planets, and other people. She saw ships that flew faster than any bird and machines that could talk. Nolan stayed by her side, always patient, always kind. One evening, as the ship traveled through space, Eira stood by a window, staring at the stars. They looked so close. Now, like bright diamonds on black velvet, she thought about the wish she had made. The star she had hoped would hear her. Nolan came beside her, smiling. "You wished," he said softly. She nodded. He took her hand gently. "I'm glad I heard." They shared a quiet moment. The ship soon reached a planet where Ira's tribe lived. Nolan promised to take her home, but things had changed when they landed. Aya saw her village was not as she remembered. New buildings, strange machines, and people who looked different from her family. Some were friendly, some cautious. Aya explained who she was and told them about Nolan. Many listened with surprise. Humans had not visited the valley for many years. The elders came forward and welcomed her. They listened to her story and were thankful for Nolan's help. Aya felt joy to be home, but knew her life would never be the same. She had crossed worlds, made a new friend, and found hope. Nolan stayed with her for many days, helping rebuild and heal. One morning, Aya walked to the edge of the valley. She looked up at the sky, bright and endless. She whispered, "Thank you." Then she turned to Nolan and smiled. "Come," she said. "There's much to show you." Together, they stepped forward into a future where stars were no longer distant and hope was a light they shared.